this is also my first time running things on the Gauntlet, so that's exciting. So welcome. We're having this game as part of the Gauntlet Community Open Gaming weekend, which is the first time I think we've done this. If you're not familiar with the Gauntlet, which I think most of you are, it's basically a community, an online gaming community where people play a lot of games. There are a lot of games, and it tends to focus on OSR, indie games, and story games. So we get to play games that are, like we said, potentially not always available in other places. And yeah, I think we probably should do like introductions because I haven't played with all of you. So I guess, let's see, your name, your pronouns if you want, how familiar you are with the Gauntlet and or Good Society, and also your favorite Austen movie or book, Austen book / movie adaptation. Or if you're not familiar with it at all, that's also fine. So I guess I'll go. I'm Maria. I use she, her pronouns. I've been playing with the Gauntlet for 9-ish months. I think I played with your partner, Leah, in a Night Witches campaign that was really long and awesome. Yeah, I played Good Society a bunch recently, and my favorite book is probably Northanger Abbey, and my favorite adaptation is probably Emma, the new one, because it's amazing if you haven't seen it yet. So I will go in the order that I see on my screen. So Kevin, you are up next.
Sure. So I'm Kevin. He, him is fine. I am brand new to the Gauntlet. This is my first Gauntlet thing. Yeah. Familiar with it by reputation and by having been referenced to it for purposes of safety tools, but have never played a game on it. And Austen, but that was the next question, right? Yeah. Never played the Good Society. Austen-wise, I love Pride and Prejudice. I grew up watching the, I think Annie, the one with Colin Firth and the miniseries one, and read that one then in high school. So that's the one I'm most familiar with, and I very much like it. So, yeah.
I forget I'm in charge of this now. Okay, so Josh, you're next.
Yeah, I'm Josh. I use he, him pronouns. I have been on the Gauntlet for a few months, a while now. I think I joined in the summer, this past summer. The only Jane Austen book that I've ever actually read is Pride and Prejudice. I saw and I suppose my favorite adaptation, this is sort of a cheat because it is not Jane Austen, but I saw a wonderful stage performance of The Importance of Being Earnest earlier this year, which was just a delight to see. And it is that same sort of like Regency romance. So that was a fantastic show. And I have not played the Good Society before, so.
Cool. And is it Leah or Leah?
It's Leah.
Leah, okay. You're up next.
So I'm Leah, she, her. I've been on the Gauntlet for, I think, about a year. I've never played Good Society, though I've wanted to for a long time, so I'm so glad you're running it. I recently read Persuasion in a really fun book club for the first time. And for favorite adaptation, I'm going to be torn between a stage version of Sense and Sensibility I saw Bedlam do, and Whit Stillman's Love and Friendship, which was insane.
That's a great one. But yeah, I love so many things. And the cool thing about this game too is you could definitely do Oscar Wilde, The Importance of Being Earnest with it, if you do the farce tone, which is, that would be a complete different thing. Okay, so new people to Good Society. Suddenly I know things. So this game, as you probably all know, is a highly collaborative game. We are going to be essentially building a lot of it together. It is a game that's diceless, so we'll be basically trading each other resolve tokens, which is sort of like slipping each other $5 on the table to say, if you do this, I'll give you that. So that's going to be kind of fun. And it's a lot of, it builds on a lot of the tropes of the Jane Austen style of Regency romance. So there is the letter writing phase, scandal, rumor, all that sort of good stuff is going to be involved. Before we get started, we'll talk about safety. So safety is a very important part of playing games in general. And the nice thing about Good Society is that it's extremely built into the game. So I've included a Lines and Veils tab in our character keeper, if you all have that open. And the tone of the game, as I've sort of set for collaboration, is probably going to be romantic comedy, because that's sort of a baseline in the middle, not too over the top hilarious and not super dramatic, but the tone can shift slightly as we play, and we can always check in on that. So a lot of these Lines and Veils we probably won't have to worry about, but they're just there as a reference. In general, we should avoid these things. And if you guys want to take a look at that and add, change anything, and then just type in the chat, that would be great. And if you're not familiar, lines are things we won't have in the game at all. And veils are things that we can mention, but we will gloss over and not really focus on. Oh no, it's view only. I will fix that. Mm-hmm. If you refresh, does that fix it? Because I changed the setting on mine. Okay. And as you're looking at that, the other safety tools we'll have available are the X card. So if there's any content at all in this game that comes up and you don't want us to go into, or you want us to remove, just make like an X in front of your camera or type in the chat. I tend to look at chat pretty often, so hopefully you'll see that. And also just verbally say out loud, interrupt play if you have to. And then another one is the open door policy. So if you have to go at any point, or if I have to go at any point, you can do that without explanation. It'd be nice if you could explain and tell us if we, not explain, but just tell us if we can expect you back, but don't feel the need to. And if I have to go, I will type something and tell you whether or not I'll be back. Because we realize that real life happens all around us. Let's see. So if you guys are okay with the lines and veils, just say so in the chat and we'll move on. Cool. Yay, all right. So let's see, I have a checklist to make sure I don't miss anything. All right, according to my checklist, the next thing I get to do is talk about the game, which is the fun part. So I've already introduced it. Basically, the concept is we're telling an Austen story and playing with our characters in a world where society and the thoughts of society about our characters matter. So that's going to be fun to play with. And if you all go to our character keeper / the amazing online play document that Story Brewers made, there's a tab called Collaboration. So this is where we basically, like I said, kind of go through what kind of tone we want, how important is historical accuracy, how are we treating the gender power balance, how much meta knowledge we'll have as player characters, and there's also like a built-in lines and also a built-in kind of like wishes for the game. So I've set us up to play the romantic comedy playset. So this means that the actions that our characters will have consequences, but these can be recovered from. things can be funny and there can be victorious, triumphant moments, but there can also be dramatic moments if the story calls for it. We will all have minor characters called connections, and these can follow their own interests, but they will also be able to be swayed so that your personal desires can happen. And society, like we said, is quick to judge, but it will also forget if you do enough things to distract them from that horrible scandal you just caused. So is everyone okay with that tone for this? All right. The next thing is, how important is historical accuracy? So there are options here. There's very important, which means we'll check and make sure everything is perfect, which I kind of say we don't want to do that. Especially for a one shot, because we will spend a lot of time Wikipediaing and that will take up time. There's also little important, which is what it's currently set at, just we'll do the best job we can, but the story is much more important than history. And there's slightly important, which is, I forget what the words are exactly. It is, we'll try to get it right where it counts, but we won't stop the game. So since it's a one shot and we probably have varying knowledge about this, I was thinking we'd set it to a little important and not, if we know more about it, then yay, and we can learn things from each other, but we're not going to be like, well, actually, the carriages had this particular setup of wheels. So that's good. The next one, I don't have any idea what we'll do. So how will we treat the gender power balance? There are three options here. One is we deal with the historical patriarchal society. So men have the power and women don't. Which is like typically the way it was in the books. Or we can have reverse gender, where the women have the power and the women are able to like inherit estates and do the proposing and the men don't. Or we can do the gender power balance is off. So it's normal and acceptable for people of all genders to have significant careers, make the first move, inherit entailed estates, and have marital relationships with all genders. So that is entirely up to the table. Which one of these do we want to play with? This is a time where it's okay to say I'm okay with the patriarchy if that's what you want.
I mean, for my own part, I think I'm most interested in either the one that hews a little more towards Austen or none, just because I think Austen does a good job telling stories where women do a lot and make strong choices against that backdrop. So the historical stuff doesn't bother me there.
You're muted.
Please, Kevin, go.
I was going to say, I'm fine with that. I don't have a strong preference. So that sounds interesting to me. So,
yeah, I mean, neither do I, really. I'm more than happy to skew with what the table would like.
Okay. So it sounds like our only preference is for historical patriarchy. Is that okay? Okay, cool. We will set it to that then. And then I've set the next one to how much hidden information will be used in the game. Since it's our first time playing for some of us, it's probably a good idea for all of us to know what each character is working towards. So we'll just set that to none. Is there anything our game should avoid? So aside from lines and veils, you can say things like, we don't want to talk about historical agriculture, or that's like one of the examples in the book. So it can be, if there's anything at all that you want to add to, we don't want to see this at all, feel free to add that in there and talk amongst yourselves.
I think the thing I'd like to add is just death and childbirth.
Okay, yeah.
Stop that.
Cool. I'll type that in. Death in childbirth or death and childbirth? Or both?
Just death in childbirth. People can die in other ways or have died in the past, all fine.
Okay. We could just remove death. It is an immortal society.
Then entailments would become so complicated.
Oh man, that would be a thing. And if there's anything else, feel free to type that in. Probably let each other know you're typing in the box so that we don't end up with Google Sheets wars. And the fun part is we all get to say something that we'd love to see in our game. So this can range from like, we would like to see, I'm going to spoil it, and there's probably going to be a ball, but like, would we like to see hedge mages of love, or carriage races, or anything like that?
For someone to be revealed as a rake.
Ooh, always good. Kevin, do you have an idea?
More general than that, but from the one or two actual plays of the game that I've seen, I've enjoyed the sort of outrageous scandal aspect that the game leads to. So, yeah.
You will love rumors and scandals. It's the best phase for that. Outrageous scandal. And Josh, do you have any ideas?
I don't know. I don't know if there's like a specific scene that I would like to see played out.
Cool. If you think of anything, just let us know. All right, so that is our collaboration phase. So I think what I'm going to try to do is, how are we all feeling right now? Still good? We don't need a break yet? Okay, it's been like 20 minutes. I think I'm going to plan on taking a break at an hour. So next we're going to look at character creation, which is the meat / large protein substance of this game. So there are 5 options on this sheet here. You can look at it any way you want, whether it's like, I think maybe a good way to look at it would be, which desire would you be most interested in trying to accomplish as we play the game? In the folder, I've included the character role sheets and the family background sheets, and that will tell you sort of what kind of archetype of character are you playing. So if you're playing the meddler, you'd be something like Emma Woodhouse trying to get in everyone's lives. If you're playing the hedonist, you are, what's a good example of the hedonist? I'm blanking, but you would be out to find pleasure in everything that you do.
Frank Churchill, probably.
Yeah,
Especially
yeah.
The Secret
I think that's
Fiancé.
who it is in the book, in the reference that I have. So talk amongst yourselves and figure out which ones you want to play. And then we can start fleshing out the relationships too. And if you have any questions about the backgrounds or what the things are, just let me know.
Are the character archetype background stuff set? Because I noticed that there's stuff already under the desire, but are those things that we're gonna pick?
This was a playset that I picked in full, so it's sort of like what's recommended. If you really want to change it, that's also perfectly fine.
That's fine.
Okay.
I think I would like to take the blue-purple one, come into substantial wealth while ensuring your reputation stays impeccable.
Cool. So if you just want to claim that one, unless you want to fight someone in a duel for it, that's also.
I'd be interested in the restore your reputation and be forgiven one, if that's not on anyone else's wish list.
Then I'll do the orchestrate at least one marriage between people of your choosing.
Nice. So that leaves me, because I think I'm going to play a major character as well, with either the new arrival or the hedonist. Take the new arrival. So, do you guys have questions about the background or the roles, or are we all good on that? Because I think you can start thinking a little bit about who your character is, and then thinking which of the other characters you might want to fill in that relationship question with, or basically pick a person with collaboration to be related to you in a certain way. And if anyone needs any name generators, there are some good ones out there.
Oh yeah, if you have one to point to, I'd love one.
Yeah, I will search. I think I have one. I found one that was like posh British names, and they are great. Add like Featherington to anything, and it will fit.
All right, Maria, how would you feel about being the former friend I'm trying to be forgiven for? Because we've got two characters close in age, and if you're
Yeah.
newly in town, you're newly causing problems for me by existing where people can hear about this.
Yeah, that'd work for me. I need to think about my name. I forgot that I was foreign, and now I should probably not be completely posh. So if you want to change on your character keeper, the former friend of to former friend of Lisette, that would just be helpful. What terrible thing did you do to me?
I mean, I feel like the go-to is like in some way like sabotaged a proposal you were going to receive.
Yeah. Yes.
That's what people do.
We were competing for someone a long time ago when we were newly available on the marriage market, whatever.
I feel like my character thought it was like a friendly competition between the two of us to see who could get a proposal, with neither of us planning to accept. And it turns out I was wrong about how you felt about this.
Very wrong. So much so that I fled to France, where my family is.
It could fit in with that for Lisette to be the former flame of Isaac Bradford, if that
Okay.
works.
Yeah.
That's okay. I just need to.
The one thing we have to make sure, we might have to like switch our relationships around depending on whether or not we get an island or a character that's not as connected into everyone else.
Yeah.
I gotta draw my map because there are lots of relationships.
And I'm fine with switching that around. It was just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you already got a.
Who wants to be Lisette's mentor / person who is teaching her the ways of something?
Well, if no one else, we could switch my. I mean, if because then we'd have less of a. Well, but then that might. Never mind. Well, okay. If Adelaide was the former flame of Isaac, and then Isaac
is my mentor.
Yeah, that could work. Is that okay with you, Leah? Leah, sorry.
Yes, that's fine with me.
And then, who is James's rival then?
Yeah. Probably Probably Isaac, I think.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Another thing to be thinking about while we're creating our characters is reputation tags. These are things we can use later to move the story forward. They can be traded in for resolve tokens, which I'll talk about in a little while. But basically, this is, what does society think of your character at this moment? Or like, if people were to describe your character in one positive word and one negative word, what would that be? If you look at your character roles, there are some suggestions there that you can use, or you can make one up. I think it's your character roles. Sorry, it's in your family background sheets. Yeah, family background sheets. And we each take one positive and one negative. And Leah, since you have that particular desire, you get to start with one extra negative reputation tag.
Aw, good for me.
And I don't think anyone else has something that is special like that. How are we all doing?
So for you filled out where you said the golden haired and possessed.
Mhm.
You just filled that out using the stuff from your character roll sheet, or
That is basically you come up with a story about like a general description of your character.
okay.
It can include if you want to ask questions about other characters from other characters, like how do we know each other. But in general, basically short description. So we have a little bit more of an idea, aside from our desires and relationships, who each character is.
Yeah.
Cool. It looks like we all have some vague descriptions about our characters. So why don't we introduce them to each other briefly, and then we'll move on to the next step. Let's see. I guess we'll go in order of the character sheet, if that's okay with you, Leah.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay.
All right, so I'm playing Adelaide Mortcombe, who's from New Money and is seeking to be forgiven by Lisette for that time she got a proposal from a young man Lisette actually liked when Adelaide thought we were both just playing a funny game with him as shuttlecock. Her family is New Money, and so she's kind of very much sought after by nobler families who can no longer live in quite the way they've become accustomed to. And is a little flip about this, and is looking forward to making some dowager who snubbed her family work hard to help her son and get her hand.
The other thing with your desire is that you need to create and spread rumor about what you did to me, to Lisette. So if you want to make something juicy up about this competition that we had and stick it in the rumor and scandal tab, that's something that basically all society knows about our relationship.
Cool.
And
Can you just tell me a little about rumors and give an example one, and then I'll make one up?
Yeah. So rumors and scandal will be a phase that we'll hit on for all of us, for everyone else later on in the game. But essentially, rumors are things that people have heard about and can mention. So things like, for example, in maybe a different type of game, Lisette fled to France because she has found herself in an unfortunate condition. Or, let's see, like Captain names, gotta look names. Captain Hatherford, like sought to gain wealth using less than honest methods, things like that. And then spread rumors will have a token attached to them that can be used to further the narrative a little bit with like a little bit more weight. And spread rumors are things that people basically believe to be true. And a fading rumor is something that is like, oh, remember that one time we all thought that person was pregnant? So we get to spread rumors in another phase of the game. But for now, we'll just be, this is something that people are talking about, but we don't necessarily know either way. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to put a draft one in for a second and see what you think.
Yeah.
Okay, so my suggested rumor is about the man we were both interested in, and it's that Edward Brimsey tried to drown himself in an ornamental fountain without success when Adelaide refused him.
I like it.
Everyone, doesn't say this to his face, but he had a suspicious pneumonia for some time.
Oh, it's so good. And I was like, how dare you do this to the man I love? All right. So on that note, I'll introduce Lisette. She is our new arrival. So I think she's been out of England, out of our little town for a while. Probably she left conveniently after Adelaide committed such a terrible, terrible affront to their friendship. She is from, I think her family is originally from France. We can fudge a little bit on British-French relationships because that's a thing. And I don't know exactly when we are, but we can pretend that's not yet an issue. So her desire is to receive or make at least 2 successful proposals. And she kind of wants to do that because she, at the ripe old age of 23, is starting to run out of time as that lovely age of freshness in society. So she feels like she has to make a good match now. So she's the former friend of Adelaide and the protege of Isaac Bradford, who I think maybe, Isaac, are you helping me like regain standing in society after I've been gone for so long? Or
yeah. I think so. Isaac is kind of obsessed with right social order, and so he wants to help you sort of, every good member of society needs their good place, especially everyone who isn't him. So he's sort of meddlesome. In fact, I was kind of thinking that his the case of him having a former relationship with Adelaide had something to do with the rumors of what happened, because he could not approve of such, flippant behavior. And so now that you've come, he sort of sees a chance to set right what his old flame made wrong.
I like that.
Are you trying to teach me the proper way to court people in such a way that they don't try to drown themselves in fountains?
Yeah, I think.
Cool. I like that. All right. Captain, last name, Hatherford. Who are you?
Yeah. So I am playing Captain James Hatherford, who is a captain in the British Army, or Navy, or some such. Probably, let's say the Army. he is a commissioned officer, which at this point means that he paid to get in and has been in for enough years to be a captain. But he does not want to stay in the military forever, even though he comes from a military family. Instead, he wants to get rich and make enough money to retire and live off of his domestic income comfortably in England proper. And he wants to do it in a way that is not so shameful, that is, he is disowned. And he considers himself a rival of Isaac Bradford because of Isaac's relative wealth and station, which he envies very much. But I think that is more of him projecting than anything else, probably.
Is it the sort of thing where you try to one-up Isaac, but Isaac doesn't notice?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. And Isaac, who are you?
Sorry. I keep trying to unmute, but every time I go to another screen, the mouse button unmute doesn't work. Isaac Bradford. So he is interested in orchestrating at least one marriage between people of his choosing. And is, as we've established, an old flame of Adelaide, Mortcombe. He's tall and imposing, and some would say he's pompous, but he simply considers himself the guardian of good social order. But despite this apparent interest in social order, he has often seemed more interested in securing marital arrangements for others than in seeing to his own future. And he's currently obsessed with helping make right what his old flame made wrong by helping Lisette find a good match. He is dependable, but he's considered dependable but overbearing.
Cool. Okay, so we have one more thing before we're done with this backstory phase, and that is to create our connections. So these are minor characters, basically, that we will all get to play someone else's minor character. And so these characters kind of exist to put pressure on our own characters and sort of maybe increase drama or add hilarity, depending on who they are. There are suggestions in your character role sheets for the types of connections you might have. They can be like relatives or friends or former lovers, etc. And typically in a Good Society game, you would make 2, but for a one-shot and kind of just to help us keep the story tight, we'll just make 1 for now. And if we need another one, if someone comes up that we want to have, we can create that character later on. So underneath your character sheet, you'll see like a place to write their name, their pronouns, and age, and kind of what is their opinion of your major character. So I could have someone like, I think Lisette is a terrible person. And then just basically like a short description of who they are, just enough for someone to get enough of a sense of who they are so that they can play them. So, and if you are completely stumped, I do have a deck of connections. I can pull up one and create something. Cool. How is everyone doing with their connections? It looks like we're mostly there. All right. So now what we can do is we can split these connections up between us. So if any one connection really speaks to you that you want to play, go ahead and stick your name where it says player above the connection's name. And the only thing is you can't play your own connection because you would probably talk to yourself a lot.
Okay, still reading them through, but Maria, I love that your connection thinks that your character is too old and is the same age.
Yep. Let's say she's like 3 months younger than Lisette. Who is interested in Fergus? I see someone clicking.
I think I might do that one if that's
cool.
I'm interested in Isabel, if that leaves people able to all not match with themselves.
Yeah, I think I would like to take Charlotte.
All right, and then I'll take Horace then. Cool. So I guess I should have done this before, but maybe the person who created the connection should briefly describe their vision of the connection so that when we start playing these people, we sort of have an idea of who they are. I'll go first this time. So I created Charlotte Stone. She is 23 years old and she's a childhood friend of Lisette. I think that probably means that Adelaide knows her as well. She thinks that Lisette is too late to find love here. All the good matches are taken and she should leave those that are left for the rest of us. So she's like a very practical type of girl, kind of got her eye on who's available, who's not, who's a good match. And she feels like, and I think in society, in comparison to Lisette, society feels like she's a little bit less bright in terms of glistening, you should marry her-ness. But whether or not that's actually the case, we'll see. So that's sort of who I have. Josh, do you want to describe Fergus?
Yeah, sure. So Corporal Fergus Westwood is a Scottish army corporal who was assigned or probably picked as the personal servant for James Hatherford, who is still accompanying him as in the role of Batman or servant. He is this scrawny Scottish guy who has joined the army to get a permanent station for himself, and he is going to his plan is to sort of flit through the army for the rest of his life and then collect a pension, and he will go for the safest jobs, and being an officer's servant is a decent one for now.
I will not do a Scottish accent.
That is quite all right.
That's why I didn't pick it. I was like, I don't know if I can resist the temptation, and it's not like I have a Scottish accent.
No judgment. Kevin, do you want to describe your connection?
Yeah, so Isabel is Isaac's younger sister, which puts her in the perfect position to mock him. I think I picture her as being bright and having a good sense of humor, and just delighting in ribbing her older brother. I think that she's probably the sort of person who, I mean, she's only 18, so she's only just kind of coming out into the world, but she's not going to have a hard time finding a match and making a place for herself in society. So, but maybe a little bit more even-keeled than Adelaide is in terms of, yeah.
tell me about Horace?
So I was taking my inspiration from the reputation tag "Unfortunate Connections" that I have. So he's a distant cousin who, does not quite have the level of wealth that's going to get him the new money status, but figures since Adelaide and her family does, he can just follow them around and butt into conversations until, with his undeniable charm, he will snag himself an heiress. And Adelaide finds this very frustrating.
I'm so excited to be a terrible lawyer. Okay, so I think this is a good point for us to take our first break. It's 7:03 here, so 13 minutes past the hour. Do whatever you need to do, and then we'll get started with actually playing, and we'll see how far we get. Go over kind of what we're looking at for the rest of the game and introduce some of the actual mechanics. So basically the way Good Society is played is we go through cycles of play, and they're all found over here on the side of our character sheet. So novel chapters where like the main chunk of the action happens, that's when we're basically writing our story. Reputation is where we look at how our characters have changed their reputations in the eyes of society, depending on how the chapter went. Rumors and scandal, or we make rumors. Epistolary, we write letters. So I'll go over those in more detail as we get to them. But I think in the time that we have, we're hopefully going to be able to get through one full cycle. We probably will end with epilogues for our characters because we won't be able to act everything out, but that's what we're going to aim for. So the other things you'll notice about our character sheet is that we have these resolve tokens. So resolve tokens are the main mechanic in Good Society. They are things that you use to change the narrative. If you look at the folder I sent you all, there is a player reference there, and that will summarize when you can use resolve tokens. So essentially, if you want to change the story in a way that you normally wouldn't have the power to just as your character, if you want to change the story in a way that makes it hard for someone else, if you want to make someone do something, you can trade them a resolve token. So it is very exciting. You can make things happen. Like I will give you a resolve token if you trip and fall in the arms of this person that you hate. Or I'll give you a resolve token if the carriage that you're riding to the ball gets stuck in mud and you are late to an assignation that you set up. So those are kind of ways you can use resolve tokens. Let's see. You can also use them in the epistolary phase to compel letters from connections or people, but we'll go over that when we get there. And I, as the facilitator, have extra resolve tokens, so I can use that if I want. And you, as a character, have them, and also your connections have them. So depending on who is being affected and who is doing the affecting, that's where the resolve tokens will come from. So if you guys have questions about resolve tokens, now is the time to ask. And whenever we play, and if you have a question about, is this a good time to use one, feel free to ask then. The other mechanic here, we have our reputation tags. So these can be used as like resolve tokens. You can trade in a positive reputation tag to make something happen. And it's just another type of resolve token. And you or anyone else can use one of your negative reputation tags in the same way. So if we want to use like Adelaide's vulgar reputation tag against her to say, society doesn't want her at this particular place because she has this vulgar reputation, we can enter into some negotiation about whether or not that happens. And the final and super fun last mechanic that I'll go over, that basically the three things that we need for this game, is the monologue token. So that is the MT in your column. Basically, because in so many of these types of novels, there's an internal monologue that's going in each character. We can play that on a different person to hear what they think about the situation that they're in, or just in general. Like, this is a particular dramatic moment. How are you feeling about the fact that this just happened, Captain Hatherford? I keep trying to say a different name. I don't know why. But like, and I'll give you a monologue token and you just tell us what's inside his head. So those are the 3 essential mechanics that we will probably run across in this one shot. And with that, I think we're all ready to start telling a story. Do you guys have questions? Okay. So the novel chapter, the first one, when we first meet our characters and set them into action. I think for this first one, it might be good to set it at like the immediate run up to and the action of like an assembly or a ball.
Very pro ball.
Yeah. I'm wondering, I was trying to think of something that would bring all of us together or like a good occasion. And I'm wondering if, Isaac, maybe you're hosting a ball as like a welcome back for Lisette.
That sounds great.
And then that gives an excuse to like invite everyone in our small village to be there, and we can have different scenes with all the different characters. All right, so let's see. I think, all right. So maybe we can do short scenes of like our characters getting ready for the ball. And I'm wondering if we are at an assembly house or just like a public room, basically, where people can dance. And I'm wondering if Lisette and Isaac are there early. I think Lisette's super excited to be back in town. And I think she's kind of doing that like nervous excitement fluttering around.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, oh, Mr. Bradford, I'm so excited for this opportunity, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah, and as you flutter around, I think Isaac is sort of standing stolidly in the center of the room, and he says, excitement is well and good, but the important thing to remember is that you must conduct yourself with the utmost sobriety tonight. You must impress everyone, for this is your return to society.
Oh, Mr. Bradford, I am 100% ready for that. Have I not I've spent most of today and last week going over exactly how I'll greet everyone, including, I've heard Captain Hatherford is going to be here and his very handsome Batman. I am extremely prepared. You have nothing to fear from me.
Yes, well, his Batman may be handsome, but he is a little bit beneath what you should be aiming for, I think. Aim high, and oh, I did have one thing I had forgotten to tell you.
Yes?
My sister, she insisted that, Adelaide is coming.
Lisette, like, stops where she is. Adelaide Mortcombe?
Yes, the one and only.
The woman who broke my Edward's heart?
Yes, do try and control yourself.
uh, Mr. Bradford.
Besides, a broken heart hardly made him try and drown himself. He did that all on his own.
Edward was an utter gem. He would not have stooped to such dramatics had she not done something so terrible.
I have heard. It was indeed tragic, and I would not have had her come had my hand not been forced.
I'm surprised you did not exert your power on your sister so strongly. Do you think she should be associating with someone such as Miss Mortcombe?
I think this might be a good time for her to show up, if that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm happy to.
Are you showing up as Adelaide or Isabel?
Oh,
I was thinking, but
yeah, I'm happy to show up as Isabel. I think enters kind of in, a youthful dress, but with like a few, modifications she's teased from her mother to get to look a little more grown up for the ball. And I say, Miss Montmercy, it's so delightful that you've come back to our village. Tell me, what way are dresses being seamed in France now?
Oh, they are so delightfully made. The colors, the fabrics, the sheens are amazing. But that is all beside the point. Miss Bradford, last names, Miss Isabel. What is this I've heard about you associating with Miss Mortcombe?
Oh, Miss Mortcombe is the person to know. 3 of the young gentlemen have been visiting her family in the mornings. And of course, I wish to find a husband without my brother. And she looks at you, Isaac, very teasingly, needing to bestir himself to his full degree. And Miss Mortcombe seems to know just how to do it.
everything must be done in proper order. And I can assure you, Miss Mortcombe does not know her back from her front.
Miss Mortcombe has spent far too much time indulging herself in less fashionable affairs. She does not know what's best in society, Miss Isabel. I worry that your brother has let you become so close to her.
Well, Miss Montmercy, how would you recommend I proceed this evening if I were to do it in your pattern?
Well, Miss Isabel, I think that you should take many turns around the room to acquaint yourself with the gentlemen and their stature and means. The military are going to be here, and you do know that men who serve their country are of no doubt honorable men, and perhaps you should acquaint yourself with them.
What do you think of Corporal Westwood?
I think he serves a great man.
Which one was that again that he serves?
Captain Hatherford. Am I saying that right?
I do believe I've made his acquaintance.
I've heard a great deal about this captain, and she totally hasn't. She's just like heard his name. And I'm sure he will be, I'm sure he is an upstanding member of this society.
I cannot say one way or another. Face does not come to mind.
Oh, dear brother, is he not in your books for assignment to some eligible young lady of the village?
No, perhaps I should look to that if I make his acquaintance.
Perhaps I should dance with him and warn him first tonight.
I would rather you keep to pursuing your... Just try and come out of this without making any of us look a fool.
I do not wish to make you look a fool, brother, but I would make you look a very great fool if I did not in some way enter into society and was an old maid and unmarried at 23.
Lisette kind of glares at Isabel, and I think she like huffily curtsies and is like, if you'll excuse me, the Bradfords, I must check on the refreshments. What if it's okay, cut to a scene with the captain and his batman preparing?
Okay.
Yeah. So I think in the Hatherford house, James is like sitting in a chair in his undershirt and his like underclothes, and he's just sitting there. He has like a book open or something as Fergus is like dressing him.
Yes.
And James is not cooperating.
Frantically running about.
Yes. He says, Fergus, where are my medals?
Hold on. He runs and gets them and brings them over. Would you like me to shine them, sir?
Would I like you to shine them? This is an event. This is a formal function. Of course I want you to shine them.
Of course.
So you're lucky that you're such a decent servant and so good with a shaving razor. I would have replaced you with one of the men who ask less silly questions.
Yes, sir. Whatever you say, sir. So I hear that there's a new eligible lady coming into town.
Well, eligibility is one of many things, Fergus. One of many things to consider. But eligibility and wealth and status, there are many qualities in a woman that a man of my station must look for.
Yes, like being able to one-up that Isaac Bradford, eh?
Well, if I can find a woman richer than Isaac Bradford, I will be a happy man indeed.
Well, he starts trying to get you to put your coat on. Well, perhaps his sister, that would certainly be a feather in your cap.
Oh, Lord. Then the thought of being related to Isaac Bradford is utterly inhumane to me, Fergus.
Well, and I picture as he's saying this, he's putting your medal in, and he says, perhaps then he might notice you, and like as he says that, the medal like pricks you.
Yeah, and James, he like grimaces, and he takes the medal from Fergus and he pins it himself. And he does not pin it well. It's a little bit crooked. And he goes, I have no desire for Isaac Bradford to notice me. I have every desire for him to fall off into a cliff in the country somewhere and stop being such a thorn in my side every time I come back to town.
Very good, sir.
Now, Fergus, are you ready to go to a social function? I'm sure you understand your position at the ball, if I wish a drink or something, but otherwise feel free to mingle with the servants and such.
As whatever you desire, sir.
Wonderful, Fergus. I truly am lucky to have a man such as yourself in my retinue. It will be a shame when you must be reassigned after my retirement.
Yes, sir. A shame indeed.
Yeah, and James stands up and he just sort of like tosses his stuff onto the ground, and straightens his red jacket. And he goes, "Well, Fergus, if you have no complaints, I believe it is time for us to make our presence known."
Yeah.
Good.
And I think our next scene is going to be back at the assembly hall now that it's probably nighttime, fully outside, and there are like lanterns and everyone's arriving. Who do we've got some options for some interactions to happen. I kind of want to see Adelaide and Lisette meet at some point. But also like anyone really. I don't know if there are any scenes that people can think of right away.
I'm happy for Adelaide and Lisette to accidentally form part of the same square during the day. So of course, like not accidentally on Adelaide's part.
Yeah, I think the assembly's probably been going on for some time now, and even though it's in her honor, Lisette has avoided greeting Adelaide. Probably there's that like scene where everyone's filing in and there's like greetings, and she just left when she saw Adelaide.
I think the question is, who are the two gentlemen partnering us in this set?
Is it? I want to see Isaac Bradford there to cause Adelaide further pain. We can actually have everyone in this set, probably.
Totally game for it.
Yeah.
It's a quadrille.
Yes.
Just a desperately uncomfortable group of people dancing together.
Extremely uncomfortable. Mistakes were made.
Probably arranged by Isabel somehow.
Yeah. This is your sister's fault. Probably to save us the pain of like switching conversation partners, we'll just do one conversation at a time instead of maybe realistically the talk to one person, switch conversation partner.
Yeah, we picked the light historical accuracy.
Yes,
we can have conversations if we want.
All right. Who wants to go first? Should it be Adelaide and Lisette glaring daggers at each other across the square?
I'm not glaring daggers at you. Remember, I'm trying to be forgiven.
Oh, right. Well, Lisette's glaring daggers at you.
I'm greeting you warmly.
There's a head nod. Lisette probably mumbles like, Miss Mortcombe.
Oh, Miss Montmercy, this must be only too rustic for you after your time on the continent.
Yes. In the continent, we have begun waltzing. This country dance is, well, as you say, very rustic and too pure.
My waltzes. It's so funny to see how we've changed over the years, for I know it is possible I was a little fast when we were friends, but now you waltzing. My mama would never let me. Is it fun?
It is quite an experience. And it is all the rage, so the scandal associated with it is slowly starting to fade. Have you ever waltzed?
Well, never at a ball.
Have you found someone else to torment then?
Oh, I have grown up Lisette, I know I was a bit foolish and heartless when we were young, but I do not torment young men anymore. I sometimes frighten their mothers, but they deserve it. You should see how they speak of my family.
Any more, Adelaide? So you admit to playing Edward Briscombe dirty?
How was I to know that you liked him? Him with his weak chest and his, sodden puppy eyes. I know that you'll make a better match than he. It was a compliment to you that I assumed your feelings were light.
But Adelaide, surely you knew that Edward and I had exchanged words. We had an understanding.
But, my dear Miss Montmercy, if you had an understanding, and then he said such things to me, surely he was not a reputable young man who you would have wished to attach yourself to. I discovered his duplicity.
But I know your ways and what family you come from, Adelaide. I can imagine that your family has come to its money without, well, resorting to certain methods. And I know Mr. Briscombe was, well, quite wealthy.
My family hardly has need of Mr. Briscombe. He was an amusing boy, but surely you've grown beyond him, Miss Montmercy.
I have grown, and I do feel like my taste has changed. So perhaps I do not mind so much that Mr. Briscombe has, well, proven himself to be rather foolish. But I'm still not quite forgiven you for what you've done.
Well, you know my heart is good. We were friends. We can be friends again. Simply point out any two men, she says extravagantly, that you wish me to divest myself of, and I will leave them utterly to you, and you may flirt with each and choose between them at your leisure.
I sort of want Adelaide to, I don't know if this is something you can do, but if Adelaide has her eye on someone already, I kind of want you to reveal that in a certain way.
That's legit. All right. Well, let's.
Do you want? I can offer you a resolve token if it is. It might be something that will affect how other people think about you.
I'm happy to take a resolve token, and I'll cast a look at Captain Hatherford.
All right.
Actually, you know what? No, even better. I will go with Isaac Bradford, my former flame.
Oh. And yeah, Lisette.
No offense, Captain. It's just that everyone prefers Isaac to.
I think Lisette will see that and like arch an eyebrow. I kind of want to know what the other half of this quadrille has been thinking. If we've been stage whispering this conversation, potentially.
Well, I think James is probably, like glaring out of the corner of his eye at Isaac every time they are not partnered together. And when they are, he smiles and tries to be polite.
So I had a thought just now. Yeah. Perhaps in some way you picked up on the significant glance that that Adelaide gave towards Bradford, and naturally, being who you are, decided that Adelaide was the one that you definitely had to pursue now.
Yeah, I think that works.
That sounds like a resolve token should be exchanged.
Yeah, I think so.
I agree.
From Isaac to the captain.
Yep. So I just check one off mine. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. So I think as the dance, so James sees this. He sees that Isaac and Adelaide share this like glance, and he immediately is just a little bit madder. And the next time, the partners change and he is with Adelaide, he starts like like Regency flirting. He mentions the fashion of her dress, and he's like, "Oh, it's so, what a beautiful continental design. I saw many like it when I was serving on the continent." And he's doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think Adelaide by default responds well to this kind of thing. But I think there's always something that's just a little off about how she does this versus how a woman who'd been born in one of the best families would have.
Yeah, I think that as this back and forth is going, James he keeps, like, every time he sees Isaac in his peripheral vision, he keeps sort of glancing over, trying to get some sort of rise out of him. I would be willing to spend a resolve token to get Isaac to make a scene here.
I have an idea for what that might be.
Okay.
If, like, in the process of this dance, I think this might be a resolve token to Adelaide. If, like, there's a lot of crossing probably happening, if she trips into Isaac's arms.
Okay.
Leading to a scene.
Happy to do it.
Okay. I think I have an idea.
Even as I'm cutting slightly too wide a path around Miss Montmercy because you're mad at me, that leads me to trip.
And I think, Isaac kind of, instinctually catches her, and then after and then after sort of almost kind of like rudely sets her on her feet, and everyone is watching, and says something like, "I do not know how you managed to get yourself added to this quadrille, but do try not to drown any more of I'm still struggling with the name, sorry. Do try and drown no more of Lisette's lovers, please." And then he turns and walks away before the dance is over.
So we're all just staring at each other awkwardly. I think Lisette spins around because probably she was gonna at some point run into Isaac again in the dance, and is just like, "Well, Miss Adelaide, look what you've done now."
Well, Mr. Bradford is made quite a scene, and he is hardly in any danger. He is not a member of the Navy to fear drowning.
I'm surprised that you would throw yourself at someone of such moral fiber as Mr. Bradford.
Ooh. Yeah, I think Adelaide says, you have been away for quite some time. You have not perhaps lost your gift for English dances while picking up French ones, but you must remember that not everything may be as you remember it, Miss Montmercy. Or are you just the same girl you were when you left?
I think you'll find that I have become more practiced in choosing who I set my attentions for.
I would like to spend a resolve token to have Edward Brimsey with a notable cough come ask you for the next dance.
Oh, fine. I'll take that. And so I guess the result of this essentially is that Lisette is forced to actually say, Are you trying to get it so that Lisette is forced to like either eat her words or say that she's not dancing any longer?
Yeah, I just really want to see what her reaction is after that conversation to him. I just want it to be a strong reaction in any direction.
Yeah. I think she sees Edward Briscombe, who looks like he's never quite recovered from that event. And I think she like gives a noticeable sniff, like, oh, and then says something to the effect of, oh, I think I've twisted my ankle and can no longer dance. I shall be sitting this out the rest of the time. To avoid having to dance with them, but she's also therefore taking herself out of dancing with anyone else
at her own party.
Yeah.
I was thinking then, while she's, if this is all right, while she's sitting, that Corporal Fergus comes up to her and says, I noticed that you were dancing with my good Captain James Hatherford.
Lisette probably looks up from where she's been pretending to like adjust her ankle and sees this person in military dress, and she just says, yes.
May I have a seat?
Of course.
Corporal Fergus.
Yes. It was quite nice to dance with your captain.
Yes, he is a man of very great social skills. I look for the best for my my captain, and I think that were you to pursue him, a woman of your background might do him well.
Oh, you flatter me, Corporal Fergus. I can see from the figure that Captain Hatherford cuts that you are excellent at what it is that you do, but
everything I do is done to adorn him.
Do you count finding him good matches as an adornment?
Well, quite naturally, yes.
And in that case, Corporal Westwood, can I really, as much as flattered as I am, I fear I'm not just an adornment.
Oh, well, I didn't quite mean. I just meant you would not want to see him adorned by, well, Miss Mortcombe, would you?
What do you know of Miss Mortcombe?
I know that at the moment he seems to have his eyes set on her.
You do bring up a good point, Corporal. And I think she like looks at Captain Hatherford with like a renewed glint in her eye. Like, time to up this game up a little bit more. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to see happen at this ball? Or if not, we can go to a reputation phase or the next phase and see what the effects of everything that we've done has happened.
I think a reputation phase would be interesting.
Yeah. So, all right, I can check off novel phase. So now that we've sort of set up a whole bunch of things and done a whole bunch of terrible things to each other, we get to look at our characters. I have to remember which one this is. Our characters' family background sheets. And on these, they have reputation criteria. So if you acted in the service of duty or morality in a way that compromised your desires or in obedience to society's conventions despite considerable hardship in doing so, or there's a third one that's specific to your background, you can gain a positive tag. If you do something that is in contravention of society's conventions or in a way that compromised your duty or morality, then you can gain a negative tag. And these don't have to be the tags that are listed there. You can come up with a word to describe something that's happened. So think about what you did and what society might think that your character might think about your character at this point. And if they match up with any of those conditions. Does that make sense? Okay.
I definitely think I acted in contravention of society's conventions.
Yeah.
So,
and we can talk about like what word you could add.
Rude is the word that's coming to mind, but I'm trying to think if there's a more like specific.
Rude seems good to me.
Yeah, like,
but also I'm a bad thesaurus.
The other one that came to mind was condescending, but you know, historically that has a different connotation that isn't necessarily bad. So I don't know if.
Yeah, we can type rude in, and then
it's definitely a positive at this time.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it counts as, putting aside my desires to do what's right by offering to give you dibs on 2 gentlemen at the party.
With considerable hardship, I think that's probably, a positive tag there.
Then I think I'm going to take forthright as kind of the parallel to vulgar, depending on how I'm behaving at a particular time, but in both cases a little blunter than is commonly done.
I don't know if James did any of the tags, if he met any of those criteria.
That's also fine. The other thing I forgot to mention is if you think you got both a positive and negative tag, that's possible. But also not taking a tag is perfectly acceptable. I think foreign. I think I probably gained a negative tag. So kind of like bringing up things that might have been scandalous and complaining that quadrilles were too pure of a thing. So I think I'm gonna gain like the negative tag. I feel like typing in scandalous as a reputation tag is too vague. I can't think of other words.
Risque.
Oh,
maybe?
that's a good one. I'll type risque. So we're done with reputation. The next phase is rumor and scandal, which is a fun little time where we now all get to either add or spread rumors. And the way it works is we'll take 2 turns, and if we start at one end of the character keeper, the person who goes last the first turn will get to go again immediately. So Leah, you get to either spread the current rumor that is there, which will give it a resolve token that we can then use, or you can add a new rumor.
I think I will add the rumor, totally baselessly, that Mr. Bradford is upset that Captain Hatherford is pursuing his sister.
Ooh, that's fun. I will add the rumor that the other thing I could do is just like take the easy way out and spread a rumor, because I can do that. If I can't think of one right away. Yeah, I'm gonna just spread that rumor that Mr. Bradford is upset that Captain Hatherford is pursuing his sister, because I like taking the easy way out. And this can be about like any character and any connection as well.
Yeah, I am going to spread, or I'm going to make a rumor that I'm making a rumor that Horace, what is his name? Horace Blackwood is Horace Blackwood is planning on starting his own firm. Or his own solicitors or something. I don't know. His own solicitor's office.
And Kevin, if you have a rumor to add, or if you want to spread a rumor. if you want a little bit more time, we can. You're currently muted.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Corporal Fergus Westwood. There's a rumor that Corporal Fergus Westwood and Adelaide Mortcombe have started a an inappropriate station in terms of station assignation.
Ooh. And you get to go again because you are the lucky last person on the character sheet. So you can either spread something or add another one.
That one in. Well, I'll spread the original Edward Brimsey one.
Okay, I'm going to make a new rumor that I'm going to spread a rumor that, or to create a rumor that Lisette has returned with a lover from the continent.
That's exciting. I was just about to add Edward Brimsey as a connection because I feel like we probably should have him to play with. All right, my turn. I will. Who has not been put on the struggle bus? I think all of us have. I'll spread a rumor that Mr. Bradford has proposed to Adelaide recently. And then, Mia, you get to spread her.
Oh, I'm spreading the rumor about Lisette and her continental lover.
Yeah. All right. Let me... Cool. So, we have finished with the rumor and scandal phase. I think I'm going to add Edward Brimscombe as a connection, and someone can play him. We can figure that out. But I think we're coming up to our second hour, so we can we'll take a break, and then we'll do the epistolary phase. The epistolary phase is basically where each person gets to write two letters. The letters have to be to or from your major character, but they can be from a connection, and you can also ask for a connection to write you a letter using a resolve token, or anyone to write you a letter using a resolve token. So if you want to spend some time thinking about that during the break, you don't have to. These don't have to be like perfectly written out letters. We can also just narrate them and say what's in them. But why don't we come back let's do like a 5-minute break at 12 after, let's make it like an easy number, at 15 after the hour. All right, see you then. And we're all back. Okay, I created Edward Briscombe as a connection. If anyone feels called to play him, just let us know. I don't know if he'll come up so much, but just in case he's there. I don't know what sort of terrible things people are going to do. But I loved what we created with him. So, all right. So the epistolary phase, like I said, is a super fun phase where we get to narrate or dictate or just say what is in a letter. And we can definitely push the plot in these letters too. Like they sort of give us an opportunity to do a time skip, let other characters know what we're thinking. So there's a lot of flexibility in what you can do with these. It's lots of fun. If anyone has ideas off the bat, yeah, get us started.
All right, let's do this. Dearest Captain Hatherford, it has come to my attention that you have begun pursuit of my sister. I must raise my firmest objection to this arrangement, for not only are you beneath her station and even beneath my notice, but your way in the most recent ball in which you plied the heartstrings of a woman who I have been trying most ardently to find a good arrangement for has proved you to also be a man of no character. Please immediately desist from your pursuit of my sister and find yourself a better arrangement more suited to your station in life and your low character. Yours most truly, Isaac Bradford.
I have got a letter for Miss Adelaide Mortcombe from her distant cousin, Horace Blackwood. It's like, dearest cousin, I must congratulate you on the good news. I have heard faint mention of your upcoming nuptials with the good Mr. Bradford, and as you must of course know, Mr. Bradford is a man of extreme wealth and standing into society, and I eagerly await the time when he can become one of our family. As you know, I have been working very hard as a barrister, and I hope to one day make a name for our family. I pray that you would introduce me to Mr. Bradford. Does he have any female relatives? It might be a good idea to unite our family in multiple ways. I hope that you are doing well and that you have continued to be an upstanding member of our good family. Your dear cousin, I eagerly await any word from you. Please let me know if there's anything you can do to help me come to the attention of Mr. Bradford. Sincerely, Horace Blackwood.
I think this is a note given by one of the maidservants of Miss Isabel to the batsman, which, asks him to please convey to his master, how upsetting it is to have him court her brother, apparently, without having to stop to court her, so that she has, the embarrassment of having a courtship broken off before she has had the chance to enjoy it.
This is so I think this is a letter from Captain Hatherford to Mr. Bradford. To the esteemed Mr. Bradford, it is embarrassing and uncouth of one of such a station as yourself to be concerned with base and foundationless rumors. I have no interest, nor have I ever had interest, in courting your sister, nor any member of your family. And even if I had, out of good sense and a desire of removing myself from any possible association with yourself and your fellows, I would not pursue it in full. I must ask that you stop besmirching myself to polite company, and that you immediately cease all such rumor-mongering about myself and my family. Sincerely, Captain James Hatherford, 7th Regiment, British Army.
And we all get the second letter.
A letter from Adelaide to Miss Montmercy, inviting her to come visit the Adelaide's home because trade has been very good and we're expanding the gardens. And she would love to have Miss Montmercy's eye educated in the continent to consult on the plans. And then there's some more genuine reference to kind of the plans for gardens they made when they were girls together, when they would be ladies of a house, and some idea that they might be able to bring to fruition together here.
I think that Edward Briscombe sends a letter to Lisette, and it says, "My dearest Lisette, it is with a heavy heart that I write this letter to you, having heard from close confidants that you have brought back some continental nothing to sully your bed with. I am a man of good birth and good spirit, and you know as well as I do that I love you fully and without regret and without wavering in my passion. I've always loved you, and despite my incident after your retreat to France, I bear you no hard feelings, and I would be more than happy to maintain our proposal as it was before it was broken so sadly all those years ago. Truly, I hope that you respond with the utmost haste. Edward Briscombe."
Captain Hatherford is going to get a letter from Lisette. It has rose petals in the envelope. And it just says, "My dear Captain Hatherford, I am so happy that you two are a newcomer to this town. I have been most honored to make the acquaintance of your loyal colleague, the Corporal Westwood, and he has spoken so greatly of your service to our country and how he has spoken highly of your honor and ability to lead, and I find myself wishing to know you further. I myself have not been in the country for a good long time, and I find myself in need of more sophisticated company, and I believe that as a military man, you have been able to sample the world in all of its splendors, and I would be honored if you were to accompany me to a tea party at Miss Adelaide Mortcombe's. I can give you a resolve token to invite the captain to that thing that you invited Lisette to.
I will take one.
Yeah, darn it. Do I have a resolve token?
Can you use one from one of
yeah. I can use my refreshing tag. Definitely potentially cheating here, but I'm making a story. I and my partner will be a refreshing addition to your garden party. Definitely how that works, right?
I rarely say no to a resolve token.
It's not normally a problem I have. I usually have like resolve tokens to no end. Yeah. And she's just like, sincerely, Lisette, Montmercy.
I can follow up with a letter from Isaac Bradford to Adelaide. Miss Adelaide, let me begin this letter by offering my sincere apologies for my most boorish behavior at our last meeting. I must confess that for once I let myself fall to a lower way of being and let my passions get the better of me. But I must assure you that I have regained control of them, and I must write you now in the most sincere spirit of friendship and solicitation to extend to you my advice for your future. I know that you are still young, but as the case of our good friend Lisette shows us, age quickly catches up with one. I must suggest to you that for a woman of your good character and station, the friendship and companionship and eventual hand in marriage of Captain James Hatherford would be a most excellent arrangement. Please do not believe the rumors about him and my sister. I have been sure to put those to rest in a most forthright manner. Yours, Isaac Bradford.
Is that everyone, or do we have one left from Josh? No, you sent a letter.
Yeah.
Okay, so that should be everyone. So we're done with that epistolary phase.
We're going to have a great garden party.
Yeah. So for this next novel chapter, we can do sort of like the same thing. The way we could do it is we could have a whole bunch of scenes that are like visitations between one or two characters, and then go to the garden party, or we can just go to the garden party. What do people think?
I think
Tea
maybe
parties.
starting with the garden party and then having some after meetups could be interesting.
Okay. So who is going to be at this garden party? Adelaide invited Lisette, who then invited the captain. Is there anyone else we want to see there?
It would make sense for Fergus to be there. He goes everywhere Captain Hatherford goes.
Gotta shine those medals. In case he spills some cucumber sandwich gunk on them. Did Edward Briscombe just invite himself there? Are there fountains?
Sure.
He might show up.
We can find out, but we're definitely gonna have. Right. Okay. So Adelaide, do you want to tell us a little bit about your garden?
Well, it's all like
scene?
a little much, right? Like it's new money, it's kind of a little bit of a hodgepodge of styles. So, though each individual element might be tasteful, it's like a bit too much altogether. And it's hard looking at it to imagine like what addition could like meld well with the disparate elements already in play. but there is certainly a large ornamental fountain with like too many nymphs in it.
I think we're probably sitting at a table, like one of those not picnic tables, but one of those like tables that are outside sipping tea next to this rather large fountain. And I think that Lisette like takes a sip of her tea, pinkies out. It's just like, my dear Adelaide, are you quite sure that these fountains are in the height of fashion? I believe the fashion is for 3 symmetrically arranged nymphs and not 7.
Oh, well, these nymphs stand for the 7 seas. And indeed, like, each of them has, like, a little, like, symbol of a sea that they're holding, which, like, adds to the gaudiness. And it would be most rude of us to scorn 4 of them. How would we pick which seas to offend?
Well, that one at the further corner seems like it's not quite doing its job spitting water out of the shell. Perhaps that one can go away. It is not fashionable in Paris to have non-functional fountain spitters, don't you think, Captain Hatherford?
Yeah, James is like, I know very little about garden features. My expertise is mostly in matters rather less suitable for polite conversation than that. And he sips his tea and looks at the decor of the garden, and he clearly does not know what to think. He's just sort of taking it in.
Adelaide says, yes, I suppose, Captain, you'd be better, suited to tell us how to strengthen the garden in case we had to defend it from an invasion from you. Which part of the garden do you find most defensible?
And he looks around and he goes, oh, well, if my men and I were to defend ourselves in this garden, I rather think we would find a different place to defend ourselves. It is quite an open space. Generally, we appreciate to stay behind walls and such. Trenches cover.
I think Lisette's gonna like gently touch the captain's forearm and says, but what do you think about hedge mazes, Captain? They are they offer plenty of cover. And she will flutter her eyelashes.
And James goes, well, there aren't many hedge mazes on the battlefield, but I would love to see one. They seem like quite a marvelous piece of garden design.
Fergus says under his breath, I think you've gotten yourself into a battlefield or hedge maze of one sort or another, sir.
Adelaide says, hedge mazes are indeed very continental, but one always worries when we'll find continental men lurking within them, and they are just not up to our English quality.
Lisette flutters a fan that she has somehow acquired out of nowhere. I see. I have no idea what you're talking about. Have you ever met a continental man, Miss Adelaide?
I count myself quite fortunate not to have, but perhaps you can describe the vagaries of their species, knowing them as you do.
I fear my ears would fall on less sophisticated. My words would fall on less sophisticated ears. For if I were to describe the many gentlemen that I met while abroad, I feel like you would faint with envy. I'm gonna
I want to offer a token to poor Mr. Brimsey for making a bit of a jealous snit here or something.
Is he just gonna like show up as Lisette says that?
Do we know who's playing him yet?
Josh, I think you wrote a letter as him.
I can, yeah.
Okay.
So Mr. Yeah, so Edward shows up, and he appears in like in like an arch in the garden, and he sees Lisette and Adelaide and the captain at this tea table in the garden, and he goes, "Lisette, my love," and he like very dramatically, sort of enters with a flourish.
Lisette like starts, and I think she like flaps the fan up to cover her face and pointedly ignores him.
Yeah. Well, I think when she puts up the fan, he's like, she's being, so coy and demure. And he comes to the table and he's like, "I apologize for the interruption, madam and good sir, but it is of the utmost importance that I am reunited with the woman whom I have not seen for years." And I think he like glares at Adelaide a little bit, and he goes, "Because this harpy took her from me."
Okay, I would like to offer a resolve token for Captain James Hatherford to challenge Edward to a duel.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I have not been keeping track of resolve tokens. I'm
losing one. I think it's my last token.
Yeah.
What a thing to spend it on.
Yeah. So Hatherford is challenging Brimsey to a duel.
Which they're played by the same person.
Yeah, I was trying to think this through, because the way this would work out in previous duels that I've fought in Good Society is basically like a resolve token will be spent to ensure the outcome of the duel, and we just say what we want to happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess as a table, let's...
Yeah.
I guess since I'm playing both, I'll excuse myself from the debate.
I think either way would be entertaining.
So second sort of thing in this time period, right?
Yeah.
So even though, so I'm thinking maybe somehow it ends up that Brimsey brings in Bradford as his second, and then because of his health complications, he has to excuse himself. So it's Isaac Bradford and Captain Hatherford dueling.
What we could do is we could say that the challenge is offered and then have the duel be a scene later.
Yeah.
So we can juggle the players a little bit. But yeah, that sounds good to me. That sounds good for like to have Isaac be the second and Briscombe too.
I do think when this challenge is offered, Adelaide like gives a start, because this is like rude, and it's like much more rude than she ever is to barge in this way, and does say like, "Well, we can hardly offer you to resolve the matter here," and like glances at the enormous fountain and goes, "It would hardly be an even playing field. And the captain is a man of honor."
I'd actually like to offer. I want a monologue token. I want to know what Adelaide is thinking right now as this is going on.
Yeah, so you just unclick the monologue token box, and Adelaide, you can check the thing under your character that says, yes, I have monologue this cycle.
So for monologues, it's just, you know, what you're thinking at the moment. Yes.
Yeah, it's just like, what are your thoughts and feelings
Yeah.
on this particular thing? And it doesn't have to be like a soliloquy. It can be words that just tell us how you feel.
Yeah, I think Adelaide is frustrated by the hypocrisy of the society around her. That, you know, for like a few youthful dalliances, and for her, like, just participating in a relatively clear-eyed way in the marriage market, you know, she gets tarred as kind of vulgar, and then here is Brimley like leaping out of a hedge, to like make a spectacle of himself, and the men all, you know, getting ready to kill each other and so on. And this is acceptable because of their breeding. And she thinks a little wistfully of Mr. Bradford, who at least appears better by virtue of not being part of this kerfuffle.
I love that. So Briscombe is offered his challenge, or no, Hatherford is offered the challenge. Wait, who offered the challenge? You're muted.
The captain did.
Captain Hatherford.
Okay.
Because, you know,
You
the
offered the
honor
result.
of his new interest was besmirched. So.
And you took the result token. You accepted that, or did you not?
Yes.
Okay.
Captain Hatherford, you know, tosses his glove down for the duel.
Okay. And I think Lisette like jumps to her feet and is like, oh my word, what fantastic things are occurring right now. Fantastic in the why is this happening way, not in the this is a great thing way. Mr. Briscombe, are you quite sure you're up to a duel? Miss Adelaide is correct in, well, in some parts of what she said.
Yeah, Edward, ooh, would Edward accept a duel? This, like, you know, romantic obsessive from, you know, the country? If he must accept, I think Edward Brimsey is, he steps back and he's like, well, good sir, I don't intend to duel. I've merely come here to reclaim the love that is rightfully mine.
Mr. Brimsey, I'm not sure it is wise for you to throw yourself into danger in this way. If I go with you at this moment, will you refuse this challenge?
Nothing would make me happier, my dearest Lisette.
Captain, I must beg you to take back this challenge.
And I think James is just like staring, and he scoops his glove back up off of the ground, and he shoves it in a pocket, and he goes, "Very well, Mr. Brimsey. I suppose that you may
Adelaide says, "No, I'm afraid we do not have a hedge maze to your taste, Miss Montmercy, but you can walk around in the bottom of the ha-ha if it would suit." Which is basically a trench.
And Lisette is like, I shall take Mr. Brimsey for a turn. My dear Captain, I must thank you for your magnanimity in this situation. I only feared for the life of a poor fellow who would be unable to withstand the skill that a member of Their Majesty's forces would have.
I think James stands up and he like dusts off his jacket and he goes, "Well, I apologize, but it seems as though this wonderful tea with both of you has been cut rather short. Fergus, with me, I believe that we shall be going to a place where we are quite welcome."
Yeah, okay. What scene do we want to have next after that? I kind of want to see.
I want to know what's up with you guys on your walk.
Oh, okay. Sure. I think on this walk, because I want to be able to get Isaac in here at some point too, and have that whole matter with Adelaide. We could probably do the walk and then that Isaac and Adelaide scene after that. So I think Lisette probably like jumps up and takes Edward Briscombe by the arm forcefully, or Brimsey, sorry, I lost his last name, and like pulls him towards an avenue of trees, not quite the trench Adelaide was pointing at. And she's just like, my dear Mr. Brimsey, while I appreciate your concern, I think your attentions are far misplaced now.
Well, but Miss Montmercy, I thought that my feelings were reciprocated. You didn't respond to my letter, but I thought that was simply because you were trying to maintain some sense of dignity in this viper's den where love must go unflourished and untended.
My dear Mr. Briscombe, you knew me 3 years ago, and I think I have changed since then. I think you were in love with a different person.
Yeah, and Edward, he is distraught. He walks a few steps away and he pulls out a roll. He pulls out, a piece of paper from his pocket and he tears it up. And he goes, "This was the poem I wrote you to commemorate our love, but it will not be." And he rips it into a bunch of pieces and he tosses it on the ground.
My dear Mr. Briscombe, I am honored to have almost received what must have no doubt been a beautiful poem. But I think that, well, my time on the continent has shown me that while you are a good man and one full of romantic ideals, that is not what I seek for.
And Edward looks back and he goes, "Indeed, you are not the woman I loved 3 years ago." And he stomps off.
Oh, it's great. And I think Lisette is going to pick up the crumbled pieces of paper and look at them later. So as this is happening, what is Isaac at this garden party? Does he show up? Or are we going to a different scene elsewhere? That, like some time has passed, and
I think sometime
I might be visiting his sister.
Okay.
But not for too long, because I'm also her, but we've established that they're friends.
So Isaac walks in and says, to say something. He walks in and he walks in and he says, Isabel, Adelaide, you're here.
Miss Isabel was showing me the new bonnet she's acquired. It is very fetching.
Acquiring bonnets is quite a passion of hers. Have you... Isabel, would you excuse me for a moment? Miss Mortcombe, have you taken my advice under consideration?
Well, I don't know if your advice, although well meant, was fully well considered. I had the captain to tea, thinking to know him better, as you suggested, but he's a very imprudent man. Well, it was a tea of imprudence. You have known me for some time, and I know that I was prone to certain foibles of youth. But to be at a party where I am the serene lady watching over one man emerging uninvited from our bushes, another challenging him to a duel, and my poor friend Lisette beset by them all, I felt I had become the dowagers I have mocked.
That is an interesting turn of events, but perhaps you have not fully considered things. I believe I have a plan of action that will set you on the right course. I shall go to see to it at once, if I may have your... if you will excuse me.
I will give you a resolve token for showing, making some allusion to the former attachment that existed between us.
Sure. Oh gosh, how to make this interesting? Do you have any ideas beyond illusion?
Well, if you're asking me to trust you, speaking of some previous time or, promises we made and kept at the time. Or some location we shared, an important conversation in.
Yes. If any of the words we ever had between each other when we were pursuing our former, however misguided connection, I believe that you must trust me that what I am about to do is done only with the utmost respect for you and for your well-being.
As you say that, I want to use my monologue token and hear what Isaac is thinking just about having this conversation with his former flame.
Okay. Here we go. Nothing but I have kept myself for the right time and for the right woman, but society must go on, and I can see nothing but the most desperate action will set Adelaide on the right course and also protect the honor of my sister. And so I am resolved, though it was not my intent at the beginning of all this, to find and make proposal to Lisette Montmercy for the good of everyone involved in this whole situation.
Nice.
Gasp. Let's see.
And then he says, "May be excused," and unless you have something more.
I think that I want to say that a little bit later, Adelaide gets a note from a footman that says Mr. Blackwood is visiting. Does she let him in? Is she at home to him?
Regretfully.
So he's probably pacing a drawing room. And he will grab your hands in a very familiar way. My dear cousin Adelaide, have you heard from Mr. Bradford?
Well, from time to time, we are, after all, old friends.
Have you, is anything to come? Will our families be united?
Only in business, I believe, and not at any other altar.
But there were rumors flying around, and
there are always rumors flying around. I've heard that you're planning to split from the family to start out on your own, and I could hardly imagine that were truer to charge you with it.
Well, you see, I was hoping to be able to proudly state that I was a new branch on the Bradford family tree, so to speak. But as I see that is not to be, cousin Adelaide.
Good Lord, Horace, you can't have imagined paying court to Miss Isabel, can you?
I've heard that she is a charming young woman. And her brother
the Bradfords are comfortably well off and hardly in need of our family's money. Let alone the portion of it that would fall to you.
It's not so much the money, my dear cousin, as it is the name recognition.
We do not have that, cousin.
The Bradfords have that.
Yes, and what is it you offer in equipoise?
Well, they could use more money.
Well, they have 2 carriages already. Do you think they need a third just for the highest holidays of the year?
Of course. It is most fashionable to have multiple carriages.
Cousin, you wish to be a branch on a tree. You must remember that some of the branches are below the canopy.
And he looks confused. Well, how else am I to further our family in this great profession of mine?
I will tell you what my mother told me. A family only makes so many leaps in each generation. To do more would upset the more established families, and they would never permit it. Our family may advance a little bit, and then my children a little further, and you will play a part in this, but it will be a small part. As in the chorus, which underscores our family's rise.
So your family will be doing the leaps. And my particular branch will be slowly inching up the tree as though I were a vine.
My dear cousin, this can be no surprise to you, and you are in a better position than your brother, for you will not have to enter the church or the army. But you know, there is an ordering to things. How would you feel if your brother leapfrogged you and you were the one taking orders? I cannot imagine you as a curate.
Oh, but cousin Adelaide, are you really the one to be speaking to me of order and society?
Apparently, as you require instruction you should have received at home.
I think that you are quite mistaken. I have a greater understanding of these things than you have, and I have no idea why I thought you would be of any help in this at all.
I will give you a token if you attempt to meet with anyone in the Bradford family in order that the next time you see me, can prove me wrong.
Oh yeah, I will. As Horace, will take that token. And I think he is going to like puff himself up and be like, I shall meet with Mr. Bradford directly and convince him that I am worthy of his sister's hand.
You know you cannot call upon him without him having called upon you first.
I think Horace is just gonna like huff and leave. What is society? Okay. Do we have any other scenes we need to have?
I would love to see Mr. Blackwood, Mr. So many names, Bradford and the captain at some event together.
Yes, I also would like to do the attempted proposal.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna just keeping an eye on how things are running. So we have the scene with the captain and Mr. Bradford. The scene with, I lost my pen. Got it. Bradford and Lisette, the proposal. Probably a very quick scene where Horace gets shot down badly. And then, is there anything else that we want before we go into the epilogues? Okay, let's see. So let's do the Bradford and the captain scene.
Okay, so where do we think the two of them would be in the same place, right? Where do we think they would come into contact?
I'm going to offer a suggestion, but I'm not wed to it. Services at the parish church.
Yeah,
I approve of that. So perhaps as the service is closing and we're leaving, and you've just greeted the rector and have made your way down the steps, and I am waiting for you at the bottom of the steps, looking very resolute.
yeah, and certainly the captain sees Isaac at the bottom of the chapel stairs, and he sort of stops. I think if that is the look in Isaac's eyes.
Good captain. I am sorry I would have spoken to you sooner. However, I understand that your family is not of a sort that you could have had a booth close to mine. I'm sorry that was rude. I continue to insist. Well, I've received your letter, and I believe that you are not a man of deception, so you must not be pursuing my sister. Therefore, I must urge upon you that a relationship that would suit you would be and would keep you far from relations with me in the very near future would be the young Miss Adelaide Mortcombe.
So Captain Hatherford looks at Isaac and he goes, "It seems quite out of character for a man like yourself to be matchmaking for me. I didn't suspect that you particularly liked me enough to perform such a service."
Passions have nothing to do with it. For as we heard the good rector say, it is not with our passions, but with our virtue, our moral character, that we must lead our lives. Yes, and to look to the benefit of all society, of all the Queen's society. Yes, and I think that an arrangement between the two of you would benefit us all.
Well, Mr. Blackwood, I believe that if you were Mr. Blackwood,
Bradford.
God.
Bradford.
What a
Well,
person to
Mr.
mix him up with.
Blackwood,
Well-
Bradford.
Well, Mr.
Maybe
Bradford, I suppose that if it would do best to service the continued lack of a relationship between myself and yourself, I would acquiesce to what you wish.
Well, I am forthwith going to take actions which, one way or another, may help you in your cause.
If I ever find it in my heart to thank a snake such as yourself, I will do so in writing. But as for today, you have done me a service, and I will say nothing else for fear of offending you and insulting my own honor.
It is good to have spoken with you, and as I sit further forward in church, I hope never to see you again.
Yeah, and the Captain James Hatherford, he pulls up his overcoat and he steps into, and he just sort of walks down the street in a huff, willing to accept the help, but not happy about it, certainly.
Okay. So, where is Adelaide when Bradford approaches her?
Adelaide or Lisette?
Sorry, Lisette, I misspoke.
Yeah, there are so many names. It would be so nice if I could change the name on the thing to be character name, but it's hard to do on StreamYard. I think Lisette is she is probably at Bradford's house, actually.
Okay.
She's probably like meeting with Isabel, plus Bradford's her mentor, so she probably has like that excuse to hang around playing piano.
So he enters the room, and after standing there for a moment, he says, "You play quite well."
Well, thank you, Mr. Bradford. I have had the greatest tutors, and my time in France only introduced me to even more music.
Yes, I have heard that the way in the continent is quite advanced in those matters. I wished to speak to you on a matter of great importance for both your future and perhaps my own. It is when we began our when I began to take you under my wing, I did not foresee the path that the future would take. But as you must understand, all of society turns as a great wheel, and we are but gears on the outside rim of that wheel, and our own personal interests and desires are not always the most important. And so, though it was not something that I would have taken to my interest in the first, I must ask, and even perhaps demand for the good of us all, that you would have my hand in marriage.
Lisette accidentally hits a chord on the piano in surprise. And she looks up and is like, me? Mr. Bradford?
Yes, quite so. It has come to my attention of late that I have perhaps been negligent in pursuing this necessary step for my own life.
But do you not think that I am too wild?
I do not think that anything but a good arrangement in marriage could tame you.
Oh, so you see me as a creature to be tamed?
I see you, as we all are, as a independent spirit pushing against what is best. No, that is not the right word. Pushing against what is necessary for the good of us all.
I think Lisette arches her eyebrows and turns and takes his hands and says, but do you think you could love me despite everything that I am?
I do not. I think that I do not know that I am. I must say this with the utmost honesty. I do not know that I am a man capable of loving a person, but I could love the idea of what we could be.
I think Lisette turns around and drops her hands and goes back to twiddling on the piano, and she says, well, Mr. Bradford, you've given me quite a lot to think about. I will not say no right now, but I will not say yes right now, but I will also not say no. I think that perhaps should I play a few more of my fine tunes, perhaps I may make you a man able to love more than the idea of what we could be. Will you accept that counter proposal?
I cannot but accept it.
Yeah, and Lisette starts playing a waltz jauntily. Is there another proposal happening elsewhere? Or a different scene?
I don't think that James would be. I feel like James would probably, continue to court for some time. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm okay with that not being resolved within this one shot. Do you want to
Yeah.
give us a little sense of what he does to court her, even if it's more montagey?
Yeah. I think there probably is like a montage of long walks in the parks and estates, and like ballroom dancing at arm's length apart and such. Very very, very Austen like scenes of romance and courtship.
Maybe a scene of looking over the garden plants together.
Yeah. Maybe she teaches him what makes a good decorative fountain.
And I think maybe, just she grabs a few of her younger brother's toy soldiers, so that he can push them around the garden as they discuss it.
Yeah.
You don't still have monologue tokens you should use at some point.
I'll use a monologue token on Adelaide and see what she thinks of.
Can I do it twice in one cycle?
No.
Yeah,
Adelaide has already met monologue.
Yeah, I think I will instead use one on you to see what you think of this courtship you have been urged to by your rival.
Yeah, okay. That is the wrong one. I think that, so James, I think, is very happily going through the motions of this courtship, but I think to some extent, I think at least right now, he views it as a way of, as a means to an end. He wants to be a domestic man, and I think in his worldview, he is comfortable being domestic without, a partnership, really. Just sort of with a wife who he can coexist with and who can supply him perhaps with some money to live off of, but that he perhaps does not entirely love,
These men are so unromantic.
I kind of want to have a scene with Adelaide where we complain about how unromantic these men are.
I'm game. We got to set it in the newly expanded garden that is like even more what it was.
Yeah. Yes, I would love that. And I think it's probably after after the captain has started courting Adelaide and after Lisette received her proposal. And they're drinking tea again, probably. Is there another fountain?
There is a new fountain. This one is like a salute to all the phases of the moon.
Lovely. And I think Lisette looks at it kind of appreciatively because that's something new and creative. There aren't any nymphs in this one. And she just sighs and puts her teacup down and folds her hands in her lap and says, "So I've heard, Miss Adelaide, that the captain has come a-courting."
Well, he is making a sally, certainly. Coming up with his flanking positions, I suppose. Carefully speaking to his quartermaster about supplies for a long campaign. Courting might be a little strong for his logistical force.
And do you suppose it will be a very long campaign that he will have to fight?
At present, certainly, for he knows not which weapons to bring to bear, I'm afraid, on this ground. But you, I am told, are perhaps engaged already?
I'm not certain engaged is the term. However, I believe a surprising amount has been exchanged between a certain gentleman and myself. I wonder if you had anything to do with it.
I did not. I think well of Isaac, as you know. I think you would be very happy, and any woman would be very happy with him. He is a considerate man.
I fear I may have misjudged you, Adelaide. Since coming back and since that unfortunate affair with Mr. Brimsey, you should have seen the fragments of that poem he wrote me. You were right, he was terrible. But
he has gone to Bath, so we may only hope his lungs and his character will return improved.
I'm not sure it's wise to send him somewhere with so much water. I see now that you've really only meant what's best for me. Perhaps now that we are receiving attentions of more worldly gentlemen than a certain Mr. Brimsey, we can be friends again.
Indeed. And in the fullness of time, I will dance at your wedding and you at mine, though. To which men remains to be seen.
Yes. Perhaps it will be a waltz. I think society will have moved forward enough that will be what we shall do.
I think it will have to be a very long courtship and engagement indeed for that to be wholly acceptable, but it will be terribly amusing when it is.
I look forward to it. All right. So does anyone else have any scenes that they want to see? Because otherwise we can wrap things up in an epilogue. All right. So since this is a one-shot and we are coming up to the end, the way the Good Society works is when you are in your final cycle, you do the novel phase and then you skip reputation and rumor and scandal, and it becomes your epistolary phase turns into a way to like wrap things up. So you can write it as like write it as a letter from your major character that sort of sums things up, or you can just do montages, whatever you want. There's like some time has passed, however much time you want. And yeah, very flexible. Make it what you want. Tell us what's happened.
Okay. From Isaac Bradford to his sister, Isabel. Dearest sister, I was happy to hear of your marriage to Mr. Horace Blackwood, and while it was not the choice perhaps I wouldn't have made, I've learned that my choices are not always the best in these things. I want to assure you that my time touring the continent has been very good to me, and I believe that when I return to our society, I will be ready at last to find myself a wife in the way that these things are, well, perhaps I have finally learned the ways of the heart. Yours truly, your beloved brother, Isaac Bradford.
I think Adelaide's going to get a letter. It is from Lisette, and it is, Dear Miss Adelaide, last name's Mortcombe. I am writing to you now from the continent. It has been a while since I have left our town again, but I fear that now I do miss the people that I have left behind. I think that I hope that Mr. Bradford thinks of me often as we have not seen each other yet, but I have not forgotten him, nor have I forgotten the words that he spoke to me when we last saw each other. I know that I may have been too hopeful for a romantic connection, but I think I have begun to thaw his heart. I think it might be all that music that I have brought with me and continue to play whenever I was in his presence, and I write to him often with talk about more things. Anyway, I hope that this is the proper way to go about these things, because if there's anything I know about Mr. Bradford, it's that he prefers things to be done the proper way. But alas, that's not my highest skill. But maybe he can teach me. Anyway, dear Adelaide, I hope that you have not convinced anyone else to jump into a fountain, and I hope that you have not convinced the good captain to do anything, anything that would make His Majesty's army lose one of their own. I think that perhaps were you to fortify your garden, introduce some hedge bulwarks, he might find that particularly interesting, perhaps toy soldiers. I'm not sure at all what it is that men like, but he spoke a great deal about those things, so perhaps you should do that, and I can tell you that toy soldiers are becoming quite the fashion here in the continent. Perhaps you can have a new fountain with that. I'm sure that will be great. Well, I've rambled for far too long, Adelaide. I must get back so that I can continue to attempt to win the heart of someone who has offered to have me, of all people. Please write back. Your good friend, Miss Lisette Montmercy.
My dear Lisette, I'm sorry for my tardiness in my letter to you, but as you can tell from the many stamps on this one, I have, like you, been out of the country. And you needn't fear for my companion, for, as an admiral of his Royal Navy, I can guarantee he can swim. The poor captain, I admit, I have left behind me on shore, but I'm sure it is for the best, as he will now be able to move his siege engines to perhaps a more prepossessing position as he pays court. His batsman, I think, was most crushed by the end of our understanding. But no doubt will be providing razor, clothing, and ladies as needed until his master is wed. Must go. We are making landfall at a new island where they have forsworn the waltz, but are prepared to teach me the begin. Adelaide.
And finally, we have the letter from, at this point, Major James Hatherford to Sergeant Quartermaster Fergus Westwood. And it reads, "My comrade Fergus, how I miss the days when I had you at my beck and call. Indeed, although my life has gone quite interestingly since you managed to weasel your way out of it, still I remember you and what you have done with me, and what you did for me with fondness. I regret to inform you that your work to pair me with the fine women of my town did not work out quite as well as I expect you had hoped when you left. But on the plus side, I have come to terms with my life as a military man, at least somewhat more than I was when we last spoke. And I think there is something to be said for a life in the field, a life on the continent, fighting men, living. You know, Fergus? Well, I hope that you have a good time assigning arms and armor and food and rations and such, and whatever else it is you do now in London. But I, alas, have wars to fight for Her Majesty. Farewell." Her Majesty? Probably His Majesty. I do not know when Queen Victoria died. Or lived.
I don't.
Who knows?
Theoretically, it's a regency.
She lived a
Yeah.
long time.
A little important for the history.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably
so
is. It's fine.
it's fine. This is an alternate universe. We made everything up. So yeah, that is a game of Good Society.
Woo!
That was excellent.
It was a lot of fun. I want like the continuing adventures of the captain now. Does he ever get to live?